Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is for you on Tuesday. It is time for another episode of CRMKonvos. We are fortunate to have with us today a very experienced analyst and educator and thinker in the field of CRM and customer and employee experience, Silvana Buljan.
Hi, Marshall. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Silvana.
Yes. And now that I have introduced you, I will allow you to introduce yourself again because I can only cover the basics. You know yourself much better than I do. Tell us about yourself.
Actually, I'm gonna make the bridge from CRM to customer to employee. So, what's the logic behind it? True, I actually started my career with CRM projects back in 1997 when I was a consultant, and in Europe back then, it was the rise of Siebel, Ventive, Clarify, all these tools that were implemented in companies. So I was a consultant as analyst and checking the process design and everything and implementing systems. And very early, I noticed that so much money was invested in technology and thinking that everything is arranged with just having a tool, having a consolidated database, analyzing data, and then interacting with customers. But I've seen all the resistance about embracing change because people, employees, would not understand why are we doing this for, what's in for me, what is my role in this whole setup, in this strategy, and what are we heading to? So all this lack of change management, lack of strategic orientation, and lack of information, communication, would actually lead to a very high resistance. So I've seen so many CRM projects fail, not in terms of technology, but in terms of really adding value to the end customer, because the organization was not on board, people were not on board. So we started to see, well, what do we need to do in order to really make it happen? And then we started to focus on really the change management around it, engaging people, but still related to processes and systems. Then I realized by interacting with employees and having much more conversations with them and getting their buy-in to embrace change, they would start the conversations around, yeah, but what about us? So every time it's what we are supposed to do, what the company wants us to do, that the customer is important, but what about us? We still don't have the right resources. I'm a contact center agent. I still have like 10 different tools I need to work with to give a great service to customers. Nobody is actually asking me for my input or engaging with me. Then I haven't had an increase in salary in 5 years. I'm not participating in a bonus. It's only the salespeople, but all the customer-facing stuff in terms of service operations, we don't exist in incentive management. So all these conversations really led us to see there is actually an impact of the employee state of health and engagement with the company in order to make customer experience centricity work, because still you need to have this internal transformation in order to be excellent to the outside to customers. And that's how I evolved my knowledge and my service offering, and also our approaches and methodologies for making customer centricity work, with all these insights that we had in the field, working with companies, seeing these problems and really responding to that with methodologies. So this argumentation line, customer, employee, and how to drive change, it's actually a marriage, and this is how we started to work in our client side, and that's how we ended up with employee experience, and also working with the methods that we have in customer experience to understand employees better and attract and retain them better.
It is interesting now I think about it. We have just celebrated Labor Day, which is a holiday dedicated to the worker, whether unionized or just the person doing the job. And you have to think that business has improved over the past 100 years. Employee life has improved over the past 100 years, specifically because we've given thought to that. It's just a great coincidence that we're talking about this today.
Is it? Or was it a plan?
Maybe so. That's very subtle.
Yeah, the Americans planned long beforehand that this conversation will take place today. So they invented this public holiday just to happen the day before. But
Well, we'll come up with a public holiday for anything. Any excuse to get out of doing work.
well, which is a good thing. Christy had an interesting comment when you were explaining about change in as part of the experience game. Yeah, let's call it the experience game. In how far is change management and are change management practices involved? What role do they take?
Well, it depends how you actually plan around your transformation process. See, when we usually start to work with companies, we actually not only want to know how is the current situation from the customer's perspective, so analysis of the customer journey, the voice of customer, see where the pain points are, the moments of truth, whatever, but also see, so what is happening in your organization? Is there anything we need to know? I remember a company who was obsessed to be the most customer-centric company in their field in the European market, and organized a huge transformation towards customer centricity, customer first. So the names of the projects are always the same: customer first, customer at the center, customer focus, whatever. So it's all about the customer. We want to be the first option for the customer. Then when we just started to talk to some people and see how they would actually evaluate the current culture in their companies, we found out that people would say, we had been absorbed like the third time now by another company, and we were in post-merger activities, and we are like bouncing from one mother company to the other. And none of these transactions and M&As, actually, we were informed about the strategy, where we're heading to, what's the purpose of our organization. So there was a huge disconnection between the workforce, so people who were with the employees, and what the strategy and strategic objectives of the company was and the top management. So if you have this disconnection, how do you think will customer centricity be successful if you don't take care of your housekeeping internally first? So it's very important to understand, where do I stand in my organization in terms of top management involvement, employee support, and if we see for those companies where we see that everybody believes in customer centricity, and that customer centricity experience is the differential factor for the future, then it's easy. Then you can have a project methodology and a plan, and you just implement it, and you can go this traditional way of mapping the journey, analyzing voice of customer, identifying these pain points, improving the experience by really reducing these friction points, whatever. But if you have an organization where you see that employees are so disconnected and they don't care, you cannot start with customer centricity. You should actually start with employee engagement experience first, so they have the feeling, I'm listened to, I'm valued, I'm important for the company. I actually have stakes in the growth strategy of my company, and then I'm also willing to do actually any strategic change that my company, my boss, or my management team wants to implement in order to be the first choice for customers. So this disconnection is something that you definitely can address if you have a good change management practice, or at least the change management and the communication that goes directly linked to change management, if you plan that from the beginning. Absolutely necessary.
Is this more than just the ground up implementation strategy that you would see with adding new technology to a business? One of the issues that always came up with CRM failure was not considering what the actual line of business employee needed. So, in that sense, is that where this starts?
No,
Is that enough?
no, it's definitely not enough, because then it's related to the usage of a new system. That's the easiest part. But in order for me to use a new system, of course, if it makes my work easier, I will embrace it. But if it's really about a transformation, to have a customer-centric mindset, to work in a customer-centric way, to have this culture, it's really about how am I as a person perceived and valued in my organization as a human being. Does my boss call me for my birthday? How present is he or she when something happens? How are personal exceptions, situations handled when they occur? So there's so many different things where there's the human interaction between, the company and the employee that has a bigger space for employee experience than just getting people on board to use another system. So this technology part is actually, I know that especially in the CRM field, people don't like me to say that, but it's true. It's the easiest part, because technology is something tangible. You can have a method, you can have tech stacks, you have data. So you just, you implement it. But in order to really show people that you appreciate them, that they are important, it requires lots more attention, lots more authentic work and presence and interaction than just implementing a new technology.
Yes, well, people aren't technology. Some would argue that they are, but they're individuals. They are not a piece of a process. You've got to value them as such, or you're not going to get anything out of them, and they're going to go where they are valued.
But it's a very good example that you just mentioned with they are in technology. So now look at, coming back to employee experience, we have people talk about, or HR departments talk about like bottleneck profiles. So what are bottleneck profiles? Data scientists, people who are in technology, designers, because they are right now very demanded. So how do I attract them? So everybody thinks of employer branding. How do I attract these people so they actually sign up? And you can buy them with money, but you don't keep them with money because they want to be part of something bigger. They want to have empowerment. They want to have an open, flexible culture. Mm-hmm. They want to decide if they want 2 days in a home office and 3 days on site or vice versa, because this is what they're looking for. How many organizations are able to respond to that if they're not called Google or Amazon or Apple, whatever? I mean, the real world is not all the tech giants, right? So I, as a company, if I'm not able to respond to that, I have a really lack of talent. So employee experience is absolutely necessary that I can fulfill my business objectives and strategy. For that, I need to do that. And if people are happy in the working environment where they are always going the extra mile and always doing more than I expect. And this has a direct positive impact on the customer experience. Because still, even if we have an automated interaction and we have technology around it, somebody is still designing it.
Okay, now I'm glad that you mentioned this A name, so well, Amazon, because, I mean, first thing is I live around a bunch of people who are working there, yeah? And they of course give impressions, because I'm a curious guy myself, so I ask how what's the culture there, yeah? So same as, well, there are similarly many working at Facebook, Google, Microsoft in this area. So talking to them as well as reading what is on the web, I sometimes get the feeling that Amazon, similar to maybe Ryanair in Europe, these are companies that couldn't care less about the employee experience. So that means they have success in spite of being good to their employees. How does that fit into the picture?
I mean, they are coming back to the type of interaction. The only physical interaction that you might have with somebody having the Amazon logo on his jacket is with a person who delivers your package, your parcel, and even in the pandemic you wouldn't see them. The rest of the interactions are purely via email, online, via the app, so there is actually no human interaction. Mm-hmm. So as a company, of course, you can say, I'm there 100% customer obsessed, and we all know that Amazon is customer obsessed. I'm not that obsessed with employees. I don't know, because I do know people who work at Amazon who are very happy, and I know others who are not that happy. Something that you find actually everywhere. But it's true, in these kind of companies where you have a pure digital interaction that has been designed with the focus on customer centricity from the beginning, because this was, Amazon was built on customer centricity day one or day zero even. I mean, Jeff Bezos he said, I want to be the most customer-centric company in the world. He didn't say I want to be the biggest retailer in the world or web service provider in the world. He said I want to be the most customer-centric company in the world, and he reached this objective. But from the beginning, his whole business model was not designed in the human interaction. It is true that people, and as I know of, in Amazon, they are empowered that anything that's not working correctly for the customer can be stopped immediately. So it's also a deposit of trust that the organization gives the employee to make decisions. Something that in many, many organizations is not existing. So employee experience as well as customer experience is not about giving the employee or customer everything he or she wants. It's about having a sound strategy, objective behind it, and saying, yes, this will be possible, but also this is not possible, and have a transparent and engaging communication around it. And then again, it drives engagement up. It's not about, I can ask for a salary increase. If my boss says, look, for this and these reasons, I appreciate you, but this will not be possible, I accept that. But if it's just a no, because I don't value you, it's a different reaction, different experience. So this is also very important. So in these kind of companies, you can still have great customer experience, but employee experience is still a little bit a black box, what customers do not feel in the moment. But if you look at industries where you still have high touch industries, let's say hotels, airlines, grocery stores. I mean, we still have a physical life, and in this physical life, we do have the human interaction, and as people, we actually notice if somebody is happy serving us or somebody is not happy or engaged at all serving us, and there is a direct correlation.
Again, let's stick to the example. So there are, again Amazon. Yeah? So you probably have read the same news that I read, that they are basically hiring and firing algorithmically. No human involved in the hiring and firing for at least some positions. Yeah? Well, the drivers, for example, they are closely monitored, and they either meet their target KPIs or not. And if they don't, the algorithm says bye. So, which is probably not conducive into the direction of employee experience, unless they want them experience fear.
Yeah, that's a story that I've heard from the Amazon warehouses, certainly.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same there, right?
Yeah.
But then I give you another example, Thomas. The big strategic consultancies have their up or out strategy. Or you have a performance and you raise up in the ladder, or you're out. So it's the same.
It's good to widen it.
But again, it's about expectation management. Again, if I as an employee know that these are the rules and my performance is measured like this, and I know that I'm out if I don't fulfill these expectations, then it's still a transparent process around it. It's not that there's a bad employee experience. It's just these are the rules that they apply. But again, I as an employee, I decide if I want to be part of this or I don't want to be part of this. I wouldn't say that in general this makes a bad employee experience, because there are others who are very competitive who might say, wow, that's great, because it's for me the time where I can raise the ladder and I show what I'm able to deliver.
Well, for the large law practices, this is probably the same, or the
up or out until you make partner. And then
I'm actually seeing the question of Christy, and I'd say so. There is the theory of the margin cost and margin benefit, right? So at one point in your life, you come to a salary where you say even if it's much more, you're not happier because you have your basic needs covered. So once you have the hygienics covered, and it's absolutely true, first we need to make money, we need to live off something, right? But the longer you are in a company, the higher you are, and the more you have your basic needs covered, and you can pay you can pay your mortgage, you can pay the college of your kids, you can go decently twice a year on vacation, then the money doesn't make the difference. Other things make the difference. And even the younger generation, if you look at the millennials, they actually say in interviews, I care about my family, I care about my friends, I want more free time, I don't want to work 5 days a week or 6 days a week. So the needs have also changed. Because once you have your basic need covered, it's not that much, you don't get happier if you have one more bonus or one more salary increase, because this is something that you're happy when you receive a paycheck, but then it's over. You need to, what really engages people is the quality of the culture, the human interaction that we have at the workplace, and that we feel valued. We all need value, feel valued and recognition. We need that. We need love as human beings, right?
Very true. I'm just as a personal anecdote, of all the jobs I have had, there's only one that I took because of the money. And I regretted taking that job within a month or two of taking it. Everything else, I mean, it was nice to get paid, of course, but I don't take a job unless it meets my needs to begin with. If it doesn't also meet my needs as a working person, as someone who can contribute to the organization and to the people who I'm serving, I don't want that job.
But at least the payment helps you over the time you search for the new one.
Yes, having money does make being miserable hurt less. It's true.
Where do you think, Silvana, is the threshold? Because, I mean, we had that example in the minutes before going live. So there's this one tech company that moved people from one payment plan into another, which caused them a significant loss of income, because sales plans usually have higher variable parts than corporate plans. So maybe the base salary goes up a little, but the potential salary or the potential earnings after the year of achieving 100% of your objectives is significantly less. So it means still they're doing the same job. So I would say that this has rather an effect on, first experience and then the happiness of people.
Yeah, but again, it depends how you communicate and package these things. You might change your incentive system. For instance, if in this organization, in the old model, it was only the salespeople who would receive an incentive for selling, and they change it so that now the whole company takes part in that, because they understand we are all important in the customer journey, even if we're not customer facing or we're not in sales. Then you just, I mean, they still give the bonuses or incentives, but not just to one person, but they have a more a fair distribution, because they say everybody is important. So then I'd say this is great for employee experience. And even as a sales guy, you would say, okay, good, I understand there is a change of strategy, there's a change of culture. We're looking at less individual performance and more corporate performance. I want to be part of that, or I don't, because I'm a great sales guy or girl, and I'm looking for another job where my individual performance is being more valued. But again, this is culture. So you decide in which type of culture, what you want to be part of. But in general, I wouldn't say it's a bad employee experience, because for the whole company, it's better.
It has an impact on the experience.
It has an impact. It has an impact, but again, it depends how you communicate it. Because if I'm the sales director and I'd say, look, guys, we understand that it's not only us making the deal, because in order for us to make the deal, we have a back office behind that in the past has not participated in the incentives, and there is a company strategy that I personally support. We need to be more equal, more diverse, and it's not only about the customer-facing stuff. But then it's also better for us, because we will get our requests faster. We will work together better. There is no friction between sales and operations anymore. Again, how you as a boss interpret and stand for this strategic decision, it has an impact on the employee experience. It's not just, here's the data, that's the result. You need to take care of people. You need to interact. You need to be truly interested, genuinely interested in them as an active part of your organization, and not just somebody who executes and who has an employee ID number.
So I thought I'll just show that high praise. Don't blush.
What's that?
Wait.
There you go.
So apparently you have at least one raving fan.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you so much.
Well, I wouldn't disagree to him, actually, from what I've seen. So
He's not wrong.
I'm just using my common sense.
If more people
maybe
used
more of
their
us
common
should.
sense, would be in great shape.
maybe more of us should. So
I would like to add something as a discussion point, because I know that we have people who do believe there is a direct correlation between employee experience and customer experience, and others who don't. It's funny that nobody doubts there is a correlation between employee experience and leadership, because we know that people leave companies because of the bad boss, not because of bad company culture. Many times it's the bad direct boss, because there is no chemistry or career development or interaction or bad leadership skills. Nobody doubts that. But many people doubt there's a correlation between employee experience and customer experience. And that's, for me, interesting to see. And for both things, there are tons of, there are more studies looking at the correlation between employee experience and leadership or culture. Less looking at employee experience and customer experience, because usually we have siloed approaches in that. Employee experience is seen as a natural HR responsibility. Customer experience is seen as a natural business responsibility. In the last 2-3 years, the transformational projects where we have been involved, the sourcing process, the tender process for looking for the right consultancy, they were done together by HR and business. So there is a natural coming together, because HR is also more and more longing to play a more strategic role, and they need to dominate the business talk. And that's why customer and employee experience, because we can work with similar methodologies, they actually find a common language that they can share.
So where do these doubts come from? What do you think?
Oh, very rational minds. Everything is about data. Everything needs to pin down to the data and not to the human experience. And I don't believe if I cannot see the direct correlation, and especially in a more digital and data-driven world, this is less and less important. At least I can say in the projects where we were involved, independent of the industry that it was, when we did this internal analysis, looking at, for instance, 3 years back ENPS data, 3 years back NPS data, we could find a correlation. We could find it.
Which brings us briefly to the topic of research in general. So I did a bit of research after a conversation that I had with one of those very rational minds. So, and he's a great mind. He's a great mind, so it's always worthwhile to listen to him. So who bluntly said it doesn't matter, there is no correlation. So what you find if you're looking at research is there are lots of case studies which are usually success stories. So they are basically anecdotes. It's anecdotal knowledge. So there seems to be very little university research, so unbiased research. Which seems to indicate that either this is not a topic of interest or an undiscovered topic. So how do you explain that?
I don't agree, Thomas, because so I do agree that there is not that much research about it, because in general, as it is seen more as an HR topic, in order for HR departments and universities do this research, you still need to convince them to see to understand the business part of it. So it's difficult just to start it. But we did in 2018 we did research with the IE University in Spain, where 51 companies participated. Half of them were Spanish-based headquarters. The other half of them were international multinationals, European companies, American companies, Asian companies. And when we asked them if we, apart from, and we actually measured the complete employee journey per touch point, how important and how satisfied employees were, but also we measured the ENPS and the HR effort, for instance. When we asked the companies, do you mind give us your data about NPS in general, without making now a correlation, a very sophisticated correlation with the regression analysis, whatever, but we could see those companies who had a high ENPS in general also had a high NPS in the industry. And those who had a low ENPS, they also tended to have a low NPS, ENPS and NPS. So just looking at the data with common sense, without statistical driver analysis, whatever. So if you just look at the data, it gives you already an insight that supports the common sense. But again, if I want to say, yeah, but there are so many other factors, true. But there are also so many other factors when I ask the recommendation questions to measure the NPS. So I can discuss any KPI in terms of validity and in terms of applicability, right?
Well, was just the comment that I was about to make. So talking about NPS, the same great mind would say, well, NPS anyways is something that's not really worthwhile looking at, because it's about would be and not about is.
But still it helped companies to be more sensitive for customer experience. And if this is the way we need to go in order to make more and more companies customer-centric, then let's go for it. I'm happy that there is some indicator that they at least take seriously and they want to track on and use it to improve the customer experience, even if it's not 100% statistically valid. I mean, again, if it helps us to make a difference and that customer experience is really seen as important for companies, then I'm fine with it. And the same with the correlation with employee experience. Sometimes it's, I mean, we can, in Spain we would say, we can discuss the gender of an angel, right? So you would never stop the discussion. You always have pros and cons. And there are always people who are detractors of the NPS and others who are the fans of the NPS. I personally don't care. I just want companies to be more sensitive around customer and employee experience.
Yeah, it amazes me sometimes that a business wouldn't consider employee experience as its own good.
Yeah.
You don't have to line it up with customer experience. It's great when it does, but who wants to work in a company where everybody is miserable and just doing it for their paycheck?
Exactly. You have a terrible culture. And especially now with the pandemic, we see that people are much more looking at bigger things, even bigger things like purpose. What does the company stand for that I'm representing? Does it fit to my values? Do I stand behind that? Is our only purpose to make money? That doesn't motivate anybody. If it's only to make money, not in our today's world. And in the young generation, they do not look just at the paycheck. They want to have a sense in what they do, that it contributes to something bigger.
Lost my track. I had a question on my tongue that I just forgot about. Bummer. I'm getting old.
Aren't we all?
Personal experience. Coming back. A while ago, was about 2017. So I met a guy who said, well, he basically was the general manager of his organization. I'll say what type of organization it was. I'll say it a little later. He said that on the question, employee first or customer first, he said employee first. Well, the obvious follow-up question was, why? And he basically said, well, it's the job of my team to make the customers happy. Yeah. So, and it's my job to make them happy so that they do, yeah, or that they can do, basically. Yeah. So now this wasn't a one guy, statistically not that significant in one particular industry, which makes it statistically even less significant. What types of industries do you see that this statement actually is more true than in others?
It's not about industries, it's really about the culture of a company. Because you have industry, you can have the same industry. Look at banks, for instance. I can have a bank like Triodos, who are also part of the conscious capitalism movement and the B Corp, right? They are very much looking into being a better bank or purpose, or TD Bank in Canada. So they really have a higher purpose on that. And you have other banks who just look at, no, we don't care about that. We don't care about employees, and we don't even care about customers, that they're still there, because they might have a great online banking tool, but again, this is something that you can substitute. So it's not about industries, it's about different companies with different cultures and leadership styles who you can then compare. But I wouldn't say there is one industry where it applies to more. Coming back to the example before, if you have a high-touch industry in terms of high interaction between human beings, you're stupid if you don't think like that, right?
Yeah, well, he was the general manager of a Club Med resort, so probably
so high touch, yeah.
Very high touch, yeah.
But it's also important, even especially when I'm in the premium segment. That's premium. I cannot expect customers to pay a premium price and then they're treating bad by unengaged employees. Everybody who is responsible for a profit and loss statement and lives that in the real life knows that and doesn't need the conviction.
Would disagree. If I'm looking at recent statements, used banks as an example. I think it was the chief of Lehman Brothers. No, they are bankrupt. Was it Morgan Stanley probably? He said, "I don't care about what they want. Here's what you do." So still, they are making obscene profits as well. So
yeah, let's see for how long.
Well, that's true. Yeah, Lehman Brothers got bust. Yeah.
Yeah.
But looking at, well, Amazon is the prime example again. Yeah, so they seem to be very successful by just setting the rules and saying, okay, we are happy for you to work here, but these are the rules, and if you're working within the rules, it's good. Then else there are other good companies as well. So if that is what people want to live with, is that something that can be summarized under positive experience creates positive experience? And I think you mentioned earlier as well that you said some of your data, that there was different correlations between ENPS and NPS across different industries.
Exactly. And we've seen that where the ENPS was really high, the reasons for that was really that people felt they are empowered, they can make a difference. Many times it was in leading functions because they didn't have to ask for permission for anything. And they would value also the possibility to have like international career. So also size sometimes does matter in terms of giving me a feeling of security, of possibility, of growing as a professional and as a person, right? So you can look at the data and find the reasons why that is. And again, it's very, if you look at the reasons, it's common sense. And then we've seen the detractors. What were the typical detractors? It was really people who would work in more the back office parts, the technical parts, the customer service. Because again, in an organization, these departments or these employees are also the less valued, both in terms of recognition and in terms of salaries. So it all fits together.
Yeah, that was especially true here in the States, where customer service jobs were considered almost a joke. You know, they were the low status job.
It's so stupid, because this is where you can engage with customers and really loyalize customers in the quality of the interaction. And it's misused.
Yeah, I'm sure that you have, and Thomas has. I know that I have. Everyone who's listening to this has had an experience where they were dealing with that low status customer service person who absolutely helped them out and turned their day around. And that is what creates loyalty to the company, not what their brand logo looks like or the product they sell. It's how they treat you when things go wrong and how you react to them when things are going right.
Yep.
Let's take a low touch company, low touch industry company. What would you recommend them to do in order to help their employees create customer experiences, or positive ones?
Make them see where in the customer experience they can make a difference, even if there is no direct interaction or low touch. But understand how many. If you ask in companies how many employees know the customer journey, the percentage is ridiculous. Because we are introduced in job descriptions, we are introduced in processes and rules disconnected from the customer journey. So this is the first what you can change. Everything that we do in an organization has an impact, direct or indirect, into the customer journey. But we need to make people see where they make the difference. Sometimes it's the invoicing process, and no finance guy will ever see a customer. But sometimes the way invoices are being sent, when they are sent, or when I send reminders, can be critical in the customer experience. So they are relevant. Everybody is.
Yeah. Do the companies, as an organization, do the companies know where there are challenges and whether there are challenges?
If they have a strong voice of the customer program, if they have if they have their customer journey defined, if they use journey orchestration with the to actually have the customer create his or her own customer journey real time. If they do all this, sure, they have the insight. The other thing is what they use it for and what they do about it. Because I've seen companies that invest a lot in this kind of technologies, but they only want to show a report to the management. And then, I mean, again, then it's great. You have insights that you use internally for communication and for buy-in, bottom up, but the end customer, again, is just being treated as a result, not as the objective to serve.
Inside-out thinking. Yeah. So, but how many companies do have this insight? I mean, looking at companies like Thunderhead, they have great technology, but they do not have hundreds of thousands of customers. Yeah,
but again, who is your counterpart to having this conversation in the organization? Is it the CEO or is it the CIO? If it's the CIO, he or she probably will not see the business potential behind. The CEO will, or the CMO, or the CSO. But these are usually not involved in matching the best technology for their needs. They just tell the CIO, I need this, and look for it. So there's still a huge disconnection as well in the internal responsibility of organizations, who's leading what and who is involved in what.
Now, we could extend that to the question, in how far is the CIO part of customer experience, or the IT team part of customer experience?
Exactly. But again, it all starts and ends with, how do I use the thinking about customer journeys, and even if they map them, or if I don't map them, if I have 50,000 journeys, because I have seen companies who just move from processes to journeys, and then it was so complex nobody would understand it. It was terrible. But they would say, we mapped them. But then for each single product, for each single interaction, there was a huge customer journey behind. So you cannot use it anymore. People don't understand it. People need simple things that they understand in order to use them, both customers and employees. And if we are not able to put them on a one-pager and in a very simple chart to make these things just to get the sense of it, then we already failed.
Good. How then to simplify that? Because if you're coming from customer journeys, which then resort to the customers having an experience, and employee journeys that support these customer journeys, that directly adds a dimension, or if not,
Absolutely. And it would
probably
be,
two dimensions.
it would be
How to-
great.
Yeah.
It would be great. Actually, I remember a conversation with a board member responsible for customer experience and also sustainability. And I actually told her, you know what? Your job as a top manager is to manage the employee journey and the customer journey. That's it. For all the rest, you have people who take care of that. But you need to ask yourself every day, how did I contribute? I, as a top manager, with my leadership, with my strategic foresight, to the employee and to the customer journey. What was my contribution every single day? Discipline yourself, pin it down on a post-it, put it on a calendar. This is your job. It's not about designing the experience. Let your employees do it. But you need to empower them, motivate them, enable them to do that. So you only manage the employee journey.
I'm thinking, let's take this a step higher. Have we reached a point yet where employee experience and customer experience are affecting, shall we call it, shareholder experience? Is how businesses treat their employees and their customers having more of an effect on where people, where institutions invest their money, more so than what their quarterly revenue is?
I do not feel comfortable with linking it to shareholder value, because in shareholder value we have so many, there are really external factors influencing that. I mean, you have analysts at investment banking who look at certain data and then say buy or sell, right? So then sometimes you have an inflation of some shareholder value. Look at Tesla. I mean, I love Tesla. I think it's a great company. They have a great purpose. They really made a difference. They have been a game changer in the automotive market. But again, their performance on the stock market has nothing to do with the reality in terms of delivering on the ground. Nothing to do. So you can now have a discussion. Why is that? I don't know. I'm not an expert in in the stock exchange and all this, but there is some. That is a little bit more tricky to respond to that question. I at least would not feel comfortable about it. What do I really feel comfortable about is linking it to more a stakeholder management view, not the shareholder, because the shareholder is a result of something. And yes, is customer experience important, and before that employee experience, I couldn't say yes or no, because there at least I have no knowledge of data. You could test just looking at some shares that went up. I did look at the market capitalization of companies like Amazon or Apple or Lego or Tesla in 5 years, and we know they are all customer-centric companies, and I mean the performance in the market capitalization just went hugely up, right?
Well, it is a tricky question, and I asked it knowing that it would expose my own biases, because I think that, there are two kinds of investor. There are the ones who are in it solely to make money off of their investment immediately, and those who are investing in the future, trying to build either to build a company that is in line with what they want to see, or to build a future in line with what they see. And it can be hard to do both.
And actually, I give you a real example with my financial advisor in the bank, where I invested some money. And so when we came to the portfolio, he said, well, why would you invest in this fund or in this company? I said, because I believe in them. He was like, what? Are you crazy? Why do you say that? I said, well, because I do believe in their strategy and what they want to do and how they contribute to the world. I personally want to invest in them. So some of them really performed well, some others didn't, but he looked at me like, but when I said that, he was like, why would you do that? I mean, who cares about their strategy and their purpose? Just look at, other things. And yes, we can do it like this or we can do it like that, but in general, the more we advance as societies, the more we also look not only at these hygienics, but really with every single dollar that we invest in something, either we buy products or we invest in companies, or we do fundraising for some NGOs and want to help them. We more and more understand that we do make a difference. This is where our power is, and we decide based on our values and also about emotional decisions. And yes, if we are fighting for surviving, we probably look at the the cheapest option in order to be able to afford it. But again, once this phase is over, we look at different things. And at least in our Western world, in the developed world, we do see these tendencies.
And it will always be a trade-off. I mean, if you do not have the money, you cannot invest the money. So you've got to be getting something in return.
Yep.
Once you're getting it, then you can start bringing personal ethics into it, I suppose.
Which is probably also the difference in opinions that you and your advisor had, right? The advisor was in short-term gain, immediate gain, as opposed to values. Yeah. So
the advisor is going to be like any corporation would be. Their responsibility is to improve value. It's that whole fiduciary responsibility argument that seems to hobble a lot of corporations. We have to improve the bottom line. And if you're focused on that, how much room do you have to experiment or to try things that are not immediately profitable?
And there again, and this links to the fact that we all know the success cases. We all talk about Zappos, where there is no limit of giving customer advice in a call without linking it to, you only have 2 minutes, right? So we use them as success cases, but then once we implement in companies, there were always reasons and excuses why it's not possible for us to do it like that, right? But we use the same success cases all the time. Whole Foods. Whole Foods is now part of Amazon, but again, Whole Foods was a good example of employee experience, customer experience, and then they had a premium price that they could get for their products because it was organic, it was good quality, and they had their market niche and be attractive, and they were bought by Amazon. The founder, John Mackey, is one of the co-founders of the conscious capitalist movement. The conscious capitalist movement has 4 pillars that they build on. Its purpose, its leadership, its culture, and its stakeholder management. And stakeholders are employees, customers, suppliers, even shareholders could be a stakeholder as well. So it's really looking at the whole community. And this is the bigger picture. And this is where the trend is going to.
Did you see them change? I mean, they still command premium prices. So did you see Whole Foods change?
I personally cannot say that because I don't live in the US. You would actually need to respond to this question.
There's one literally across the street from my apartment building. I'll go check.
So, well, I know Whole Foods only after they got acquired. And, well, what I can say is, well, they have often a similar range than other markets. If I go to a Safeway, they have organic as well. It's not only organic, but they also have organic. But I get the same produce there at a lower price. So it means Whole Foods caters to the more affluent clientele. They probably are exclusively organic, which is fine. They also have some stuff that others don't have. Well, if I look at their variety of cheeses, for example, not everyone has it. The question is in how far they changed, or, well, their new owner changed them in terms of, well, corporate culture, or whether they are staying independent. That might be as well, so that they just leave them be and only care for the data that the company generates, which is an important aspect as well.
Take an easier example, Thomas. I mean, you live close to the headquarters of Starbucks. Why would somebody pay the triple of the price for a coffee that is not even the best coffee, but you still do it? Why do you go to Starbucks?
I don't.
It's but people who do, it's the complete experience. It's the Wi-Fi. It's this and that. It's the standard. They know what they get. So the whole thing was designed on a premium price, not being the best product, because it's not the best coffee.
Is
Not
that
even
still
close.
valid? But is that still valid? Because if I'm looking at many of the Starbucks outlets that I have been in, and they are not only in the US, well, from an interior point of view, they're sometimes pretty crappy. The coffee is not the best, yes. And the Wi-Fi is everywhere as well. Why not going to a Tim Hortons or Hortons? Which is
At least
another
I can
coffee.
tell you, I have never seen an unengaged employee at the Starbucks. Never. Never ever. In years.
Okay, so why is that?
They probably have this view on I need to work internally with my people first in order to make them see that this is important for us, why we do this and that. So this whole onboarding, the whole employee experience being there, it must work well, because I cannot say, and I have seen many Starbucks across the world, I could not say that I do not remember any bad interaction with somebody representing the Starbucks brand. And I think this is absolutely unique. And I have no idea if they have an employee experience strategy in place.
Okay, no, I don't know either. So I just don't. Well, that's probably my bias. I don't find them that extraordinary. From maybe the people just do what I expect them to do. That might be, yes, which is expectation management again.
Well, that's customer experience.
And they smile,
Yeah.
and they always smile and ask you for your name and have a little conversation with you, and always say, "Have a great day," even if it's a standard process, but it's being executed by everybody with a smile on his or her face. I mean, that's a big step towards. How many companies are not able to ensure that?
Yeah.
These simple things.
Good comment from Christy again. Don't buy what you do.
Yeah,
They're looking
exactly.
at the why. Yeah. And I know that Starbucks is always the example of they're not selling coffee, they are selling lifestyle. Which originally probably really set them
The third
apart.
place.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was the third place between my job and between my home.
Yeah. So right now, I think the concept got copied. So that's probably what creates my not so good bias.
But look also another American, it's really Nordstrom. Look at Nordstrom's. Again, it's a great, or Southwest Airlines. I mean, you have a bunch of companies where you just see that in a natural way, they don't even discuss if between employee experience and customer experience there's a correlation, because they just live it. They see it as a given. They see it as a common sense. And they are consequent and coherent in actually putting employees and customers at the same level. It's not that customers are more important or employees are more important. They are both important, and they have a strategy in parallel to understand one does not work without the other. In a very natural way, and for for decades.
And I think it is worth pointing out that if you can achieve positive customer experience and employee experience in air travel, you've got to be doing something right.
Absolutely.
That's practically a miracle.
Yeah. Getting back, well, at the end of the day, this is just a final one from my side, because we are closing the hour soon. So we are approaching the top of the hour, as the English people and amongst us would say. Now you have these two entities that may or may not be correlated, depending on who you ask. So now, assuming that they are correlated, where to put the money? So there you have, you want to improve something, how to decide what is the best bang for the buck for when starting an initiative.
Does engagement cost money? Or is it more a time investment and being present and caring about people? How do you, again, I think we are misled if we think it all costs money. If I'm a manager and I take my people seriously, I have a conversation with them at least once a week. I call them. I ask them during the pandemic, how are you doing? And not talking about a business agenda. I'm just interested in you as a person. How are you? How do you feel? How can I support you? It doesn't cost me a cent. It's about human centricity. Being a good person, caring about people. I'm a bad manager if I don't care about people. I'm sorry. You can't be a good manager if you don't care about people. Then you can manage Excel sheets, but not people.
I would fully agree. Still, I needed to put that into. I needed to tease you out there, because you know where it comes from. It's the fully data-driven people again. So who are
Then invest in voice of employees or employee engagement tools. Listen to them.
Yeah. Looks, you got one more fan.
Just one? I think that there are a legion of them.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that there wouldn't be, because Silvana, once again, you have amazed me with the depth and insightfulness of your conversation. I feel like we could go for a good long time still.
Thanks,
But
Marshall.
we are at the top. We are at the end of the hour, and well, do you have more time, or shall we call it now?
I didn't get that one. Sorry.
Oh.
Was
I
it a
was
question
wondering-
or was it a comment?
It
was
was
a question.
part comment and then into the question. Normally we could end at the hour, but if you have time to continue chatting, there's nothing.
Yeah,
stopping us.
5-10 more minutes are fine, because I need to get the dinner for my kids ready.
Okay.
Ah,
Well, that's
family
the family
experience.
Exactly, exactly.
The family experience. And I think we should take up, if you are game, Silvana, we should take up her suggestion with the other guy. Well, you know who we are talking of here. We don't want to put anyone on the spot. That's why we are not naming names here. I think that would come to a really great discussion.
Sure.
If you're
I'm
up to
up
it, so
to it.
I'll approach him whether he would like to get into a round table with, well, maybe we add someone like Graham into the mix, who has great points of view as well, or whoever you find that we should involve to get into a rounded discussion, a well-rounded, constructive discussion
Sure.
towards
Or a
this
knockdown,
objective.
drag-out brawl.
I think that would be quite a valuable thing. We might get Christy into it as well. So she was the culprit for our last roundtable discussion. She was the trigger for that as well with her smart comments. So, well, in order to not affect your family experience or your family's experience too badly, I think we should call it an hour. And you had a great closing statement with my question that it's the job of the manager and it doesn't always cost money. I think that was a very important point. Many, many thanks for coming, for joining us and providing lots of good insight. You've seen the interaction with, well, Christy and Ricardo. So that was good. It was really good. I loved it.
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for letting me share my thoughts.
It has been a
Always a
pleasure,
pleasure.
and I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah.
Great. Me too.
Yeah. So let's go offline now. I end the broadcast. So thanks to everybody who participated.